Today I will be reviewing the movie Dark Crystal. It was written and directed by Jim Henson and co-directed with Frank Oz. It was released in 1982 and it saw a decent bit of success in the industry because it was based on the novel by Jim Henson, and it was already had kind of sort of a following, and the genre attracted a lot of people. It was a fantasy adventure genre, and the setting was the fantasy world of Thra. The music and soundtrack was by Trevor Jones. The movie was done entirely with puppets, which is really interesting at the time. They were controlled by teams of people that would move them around the set and control their arms, legs, and mouths and stuff. And it was like really groundbreaking. No one had ever done it before, and it was a crazy way to do it. And a lot of people really enjoyed it. It also weirded out a lot of people. So first of all, I'm going to start with the summary of the movie, and then I'm going to go into a specific scene, which will be the death of the Skeksis Emperor. To start with the summary, Jen, a Gelfling, is tasked with saving the world from the Skeksis by putting the crystal back together, the main purpose of the movie, which when it broke, it made the Skeksis and Mystics, which they're kind of like together, they're intertwined, their lives are, which you'll see later in the movie, not to get too into detail. And aided by Kira, a fellow Gelfling, last of their kind, they set out on their adventure to stop the Great Conjunction, which is pretty much the end of their world. So now we'll start to talk about the death scene of the Skeksis Emperor. It's sort of the call to adventure for Jen, because the Emperor's death scene causes Jen's mentor to die, because they're intertwined, like I mentioned before. And he kind of set him out on the adventure to stop the Great Conjunction. So let's talk about some of the camera work. It starts with an establishing shot of the castle that kind of like sets the tone. It's got really dark lighting, and there's like diegetic thunder going on in the background. There's also some diegetic wind, which is all like kind of like in their world, and it like just establishes a kind of like a dark, broody place. And then as we'll like right into it, the Lord Chamberlain is walking up in the very next part of the scene, and his footsteps are actually done with Foley artistry, which is very interesting. It was done quite a bit throughout the film. And the camera angle as he's walking is a low, medium angle, static, low angle, medium shot of him walking closer to the camera. And he then bumps into another Skeksis, and they use a fade transition, which they don't really do a lot of in the movie, but it was an interesting use here from one shot to the next of them like together, and then also them walking towards the death chamber together. And then they use a tracking shot, vitalizing rack focus for as they're going around the corner, so you keep your attention on them while they're talking and like having like a little like banter back and forth. And then they get around the corner, and then the camera stops, and like as they like walk into the room, it fades everything into focus, which is kind of a cool little effect they did there. And then they use a couple jump cuts to go around the room and kind of show off like the wide range of people in the room. This was all done at eye level shots to make you feel like you're part of the scene. And then from here, this is one of the cooler shots of the scene. They use a tracking camera, and it follows around the Lord Chamberlain, and it kind of makes you feel like you're one of the Skeksis, and you're like kind of crowding around the bed to see the Emperor dying. It like kind of zooms into his face, and it feels like you kind of just like leaned in with everyone else in the scene. And then they do a few more jump cuts, and then they use a close-up of the Emperor dying, which is they kind of like jump cut around to see reactions of some of the other Skeksis as he's dying. And then you get like some really cool special effects when the Emperor like crumbles. It was really artfully done. And then the whole scene has like a really dark lighting, because it's kind of just like perpetuate like what they stand for. They're like dark, evil people. And it's great use of just like using your lighting to like establish more meaning behind the shot. That's what I have for you today, and thank you for listening.